If we want to control our reality, we have to create an illusion or a fantasy within which we live our lives. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Annelise. Here on my YouTube channel, I explore the topic of control from all kinds of different angles. I also offer one-on-one coaching and guidance. You can find more information on that in the description. But now let's continue to the rest of the video. Control is always an illusion. There is no such thing as being able to control reality. There is no such thing as being able to control other people. There is no such thing as being able to control your emotions. It's not a real thing on an objective level. Now, that doesn't mean that when you have had a lot of experiences where you have felt profoundly out of control, that it's not a healing practice to create certain structures in your life that make you feel as if you have a grasp on physical reality. But in a sense, control is not a real thing. We can definitely reduce the level of entropy within our immediate environment, but the general concept of controlling reality is always an illusion. That therefore means that when we live within the belief that we can control reality, which is usually a subconscious belief, we simultaneously had to create a false reality or a fantasy that we needed in order to keep the belief that we can control reality alive. I'm going to give an example. We cannot control other human beings. There's no way. And so when we are relating to someone else in a very controlling way, which is what happens, for example, when we are falling into codependency, when we are relating codependently to someone else, we simultaneously have to have an idea of this other human in our minds that is not true, that is an overlay, that is, for example, we put them on a pedestal, or we see them only as their potential and not as the human that they are at this moment in time with all their flaws and everything. So in order to live in the belief that we can control that other human being, we cannot perceive that human being as he or she is, because then it would be obvious that it's not possible to control them. And therefore, we have to cut ourselves off from who they really are, create a false persona of them in our own minds, and that's then the person that we engage with. And that's the person that we try to control through codependency, for example. And this is why someone who is in a relationship with a codependent feels so unloved, because they are not being seen for who they are. They are being approached as this thing that is not them, and that is being engaged with in a very unloving and controlling way. But then, of course, the codependent will say that they do all these things because of how much they love this other human being. And, that's where it gets super confusing and super messy and all kinds of drama starts to exist. But the point that I want to make is that when you are in a relationship with someone that you are trying to control at the same time, you are not seeing this human for who they are. There's no way. If you were seeing this human for who they really are, you would automatically understand that you cannot control them and that you would not even want to control them. So there's always a disconnect when relating to another human codependently. You are engaging with someone that you created in your mind, which is not them, because by sake of engaging with some false persona, you can feel in control if you are in that situation. I'll give another example. Perfectionism is also a way that we try to feel in control. And when we are being perfectionistic, we are also not approaching ourselves in a realistic way. We are approaching ourselves as this thing that it would be able to do anything. But we are limited human beings, so that's completely disconnected from reality. But by putting that overlay onto ourselves that we would be able to do anything perfectly in no time, this is how we try to feel in control of ourselves, even though it doesn't work, obviously. And perfectionism usually comes from an experience of feeling profoundly out of control, and that through this coping mechanism, we then manifest that reality of feeling out of control again. But that set aside, by approaching ourselves as this thing that would be able to do anything perfectly in no time, this is our strategy of feeling in control. Why? Because if we were able to see ourselves realistically, we would understand that we are not able to do anything perfectly in no time. And that then makes us vulnerable, which we associate with feeling out of control. So, in order to grasp onto this illusion of control, we simultaneously have to create an image of ourselves that is not true and that we hold on to in order to maintain that illusion of control. On another level, if we look at the world today and if we look at how controlling overarching organizations or big corporations tend to be, that also goes along with engaging with a perception of the public that is completely disconnected from reality. And this is the reason why there is so much gaslighting present in the world today, because in order to control a big group of people and make them into something that they are not, these overarching organizations have to make that group of people as a whole believe that they are something that they are not. Hence the gaslighting. And this explains why it is so hard to heal out of ego structures that have to do with control. Because in order to transcend those ego structures, we have to step out of a false reality. And when we wake up from an illusion, it's just a terrible feeling. And the ego wants to keep that false reality alive because the ego wants to feel in control. And therefore, my suggestion would be that when you are working towards transcending certain control structures within your own consciousness, move very kindly and gently through that step of bringing that false reality to light and developing empathy for yourself that you needed that reality in order to stay safe in the past. And it's also useful when you are doing inner work to anticipate on the fact that there will be a reality that you are going to step out of when you are going to release control relative to a specific aspect in your life. Because a very disturbing thing during the process of healing is that we are moving through certain emotions, we are moving through certain energies when we're doing inner work. And when that false reality starts to surge, there's this shaky moment where we're like, no, I don't want this thing to be true, or I don't want to let go of this idea that I had about this specific person, or I don't want to believe that that personality trait is true for me. So when we are going into an inner work session with the knowing that we are going to step out of a false reality, we can anticipate, we can step into that journey of inner work with anticipation that we are going to step out of an old reality. And that makes the whole process a little bit easier. I believe that when we are talking about control, if we intrinsically link that to the existence of a false reality that we are operating out of, we put ourselves in a more informed position when we are approaching the problem, which is always empowering. If you have specific questions about what that type of inner work would entail, you can always drop me an email, or if you are interested in coaching or guidance, feel free to contact me. It's always good to work around the topic of control with someone else. This doesn't have to be me, but typically doing it on your own can require a little bit more practice, or a little bit more time and energy to transcend certain things. So if you are interested in one-on-one coaching or guidance, you can contact me. And yeah, that was all that I had to say for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.